video shows how to remove the top on a Volvo C70 Convertible, the first generation of the car. Once my top wore out, I looked online to see if there was anything, any videos or anything like that. I didn't see a whole lot of stuff. I saw a lot of questions about how does it come off and is it a hard job, but I couldn't find anything that showed you how to do it or anything in print. So I decided to make a quick video. I've got a few apologies to make. This is pretty much of the completed top. The first apology is I didn't realize I had the camera setting on low def, so it's a little bit smaller, but it still came out pretty good. The second is sorry that the video is a little bit choppy. I had to record it in pieces and then stitch it together. The third is if I mention things multiple times, I tried to edit them out during the transitions, keep it as short as possible. So don't worry, everything is here. All the major points are here. Last, sorry for the shaky camera work in some spots. And if I ramble on just a little bit, it's kind of hard to keep focus while you're in the middle of doing something and you're trying to videotape it as well. So I was trying to narrate it and work at the same time. So it's not going to look perfect, but all the points are here. I would say as far as a job difficulty, you're probably looking at maybe like a 5 or 6 out of 10. It's not really a hard job. It's a little labor intensive. But other than that, it's not too bad. So I hope this video helps so you can replace your top on your own Volvo C70. Okay. I didn't see much posted online about replacing a top on a Volvo C70. I saw a lot of questions, but didn't see anything on YouTube. I'm not a big one for posting a bunch of stuff online, but I thought it might be helpful to others who had the top. This is a 2001 Volvo C70, and they're pretty much the same up until 2004. In our case, the top is in excellent shape, even though it's a 2001. We only had 22,000 miles on it, so even though it's not driven, the rear windows still fall out. This is a repair that I did just to stop it from leaking. Just stuffed a piece of aluminum up in there and put some silicone on it. These are notorious for having the seal of the rear window, I guess, come apart. There's a bunch of stuff online about using 3M window weld and some other products to glue the glass, and I guess people have had some success, but the problem with the Volvo top as opposed to some of the other tops that I've seen is it really does pull really hard on this back window, and it doesn't seem to glue very well. I did try to use the 3M window weld, and it just tore right off. I left it sit for 3 days. I loosened the top. Got a really good seal on it. Did use the 3M primer, and as soon as we put the top back up, it just tore right off of the window. So the 3M window weld that you read about actually might work well. I've seen it used on it like a Chrysler Sebring top, and just because of the angle of the glass, they seem to work pretty well. So if you're going to try the window weld tip to glue your window in, give it a shot. It's only 25 bucks for window weld, but you may wind up replacing the top. I'm going to just do this in pieces because I'm doing the top by myself, so I'll try to stitch the video together, and I'm not going to go crazy. I've done replaced a couple of convertible tops in the past on some 68 Mustangs, some mid-70s Oldsmobile Cutlass, I think an old Chevelle. The tops kind of are the same, but these ones look a lot more intricate to take off, I guess because of the way they move. In some of the instructions that I've seen, generally you have to loosen up part of it. I don't think it really matters if you loosen up the front or the back. Since the Volvo raises the back glass first, that's where I'm going to start. And if it changes, or I find out that it might be easier to do the front, I guess I'll mention that in the video, or maybe try to edit it. I'm not going to go too crazy because I really have to get this done. But generally, you can tell by looking at your convertible top, your new top, where the screws are. You've got a lot of attachment points along the back, along the frame. The convertible tops, you have your headliner, and there's a lot of Velcro straps. How they don't get caught up in all those gears, I'll never know. And then, you know, you get your wiring harness for your defroster glass and things like that. So generally what you need to do is put some slack in the top, and then you could start getting the stuff off. So that's what I'm going to do. Hopefully the video is not going to be too choppy. Like I said, I'm doing this myself, so what I'm going to do is just kind of take the stuff off, and then I'll go back with the video camera and show you what I did. But this is where I'm going to start. I just hit the button, raise the back roof, put enough slack in the top so I can get it off and then start to pull it forward. One thing worth mentioning in the Volvo, as I guess some of the newer convertible tops are, what you don't want to do is take any of the framework apart or move any of the switches or do anything like that. If you get this thing out of time, you're going to have to take it back to the Volvo dealer, and then they have to kind of sync it up. So hopefully I won't goof that up, but I think as long as you don't goof around with the frame, you're in good shape. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get to it and go from there. Okay, didn't do too much. All I did is removed all of the screws. They go up around the perimeter of the back of the frame. This molding comes off. It's kind of connected. This is like a sponge rubber for the weather strip. As you can see over here, this actually was broken off, this end, so I guess that would probably allow water to get down in there. So I'll have to take a peek at that when I put it back on. That actually looks easy enough to replace after the top is done. You know, I could always pull that back off, or there might be some glue for that foam. Anyway, pull all your perimeter bolts off. Sorry for the shaky camera work. Pull all your perimeter bolts off. This thing will, the end of the top will come up. You have to pull off your headliner where it's glued. Just pull that back, that'll hang. There's a couple of Velcro tabs in there that hold the wiring. Pull those off. There's a little tab on the corner of the roof, and that actually just goes right in there. So what I did is I put the screw right back in there. I did drop one on the other side, so I'll have to go fish that out. But essentially, it's pretty self-explanatory. You see all the screws that really need to come out, so I'm not going to go crazy videotaping that. And that's it. And then you get it pretty loose. I guess the next is to do the straps. There are a couple of rivets under there. I'm not sure if you can make them out. And I think they need to be drilled out. I'll have to look at the instructions that I had. So that's where we are so far. Okay, at this point, this is going to be the same for both sides, so I'm not going to videotape both sides. You've got a strap. I'm not sure how big my field of view is here, but and I'm in the sun. There's the corner of the top. This is the driver's side, rear. You've got a strap that we've taken off before. Right in the corner there, you've got a stud and a washer and a bolt. Now I put the bolt and the nut rather and the washer back on the stud. Essentially what it does is it goes through the bracket, attaches to the cable. You'll see when you take it apart. What I did is I put it back on there so I don't lose it. It's probably metric. I couldn't figure out what size it was. I could barely get my hand in there. So I used a 9/32 little Craftsman wrench, got it off manually. If you look back in here, if you peel this back, you've got one. This is the end of a rivet. Hope you can see that. It's the end of a rivet. If you come around to the front on the top by your rear quarter window, you've got a molding here, rubber molding. If you peel it back, there's screws on it to remove the headliner on one side. If you peel it back on the other, I don't know if I can get this on video. Anyway, it's the rubber molding. If you peel it back, you'll actually see the rivet in there, pretty much right where my hand is. So there's a couple rivets as you're doing this stuff. There's a couple rivets that you're going to remove. And that's what we're going to do now. I want to get the rivet out of there, and then that should be able to begin to pull this top back. Okay, here we are back again. I drilled out those 4 rivets. This is right above your quarter window, your rear quarter window. That's the trim above that. Once you pull that molding back and drill the rivets out, it lets you pull that whole section of trim out. Sorry again for the shaky video. I'm using a little portable video camera, and I'm not quite, I see the screen, but I can't really tell my frame of reference here. But anyway, you pull the rivets out. That lets you pull the top up pretty well. Now, other than a couple of straps, I'll be able to pull this whole thing back pretty good, and then get most of it out. So once you get that, the other side is actually the same. I'm going to do that now. I just want to note that I looked in the basic instructions that came with the top, and it does say to retract the back of the back of the top into the car first, bring the front of it straight up, and remove the header bolts across the front. That might actually be an easier way to do it, but I've seen a couple of things and read a couple of things online where people were doing the back first. So if it looks like it might be easier to do it that way, I'll make a note towards the end of the video. But I would imagine once this is off, there's not much in the center holding the top. So once you can peel the top back that way towards the front, it should be easy enough to then just retract it, the framework back into the back, just until the front unlatches, and then we can unlatch the front. So I don't think it's going to be that big of a difference. Essentially, to drill these out, all I did was, just so you don't get metal shavings down into the window trim and the quarter window. I mean, God knows these regulators on the Volvos are the cheapest things on the planet Earth. Throw a tarp over it, get in the car, sit with your chest against the door jamb. It gives you a real nice base to drill out those rivets, and that's what it looks like when it's out and the trim is done. So I'll be back. Okay, back again. After drilling out those 3 or 4 rivets on the passenger side, that lets us pull the top and fold it on top of the roof. I just wanted to make note that you don't want to be yanking on or pulling on this the framework, because if you jump those teeth, you're going to be out of time or out of sync, and then you'll have to take it back to the dealer to get everything synced up. So hopefully through this process I won't actually do that. Anyway, after pulling the making sure your defroster cables are off and things like that, you can pull the top back. You do have to unzip your back window. And I noticed on mine, I already know I'm going to have a little issue with this. I noticed on mine that whoever did it from the Volvo factory, not sure if you can see that, actually pulled off the zipper portion. So they must have zipped it, and when they got to the end, pulled it tight, and the zipper must have pulled off. So without a zipper, you're not able to zip the headliner to the rear window. So I think that'll be okay. Usually have all this real thin plastic, and that's usually worn. The headliner is like brand new on the outside, but that's not going to help. Anyway, once you start pulling it off, when you get to this first bow, or the second bow, there's 2 screws on the end. Pull this plastic off, and your convertible top is actually wrapped around and glued. It looks like it's like a sticky tape on there. So I don't know what the new convertible top looks like. I didn't look at the bottom of it yet. I don't know if there's something to screw that on, or if it's actually got an adhesive on it as well. So I'll be back to you just as soon as I pull that back and go inside and see how to order a headliner. On it, it's got some screws. The cable comes up through the framework. It's got a little attachment there. I disconnected it. And then put it back just so I don't lose it on the framework. Comes up through the framework, it attaches to that one. After that's out, it'll be able to swing forward a little bit more. It's got some straps on it. They go through these little connectors right there. Where am I? Right there. They go through the connectors. Same thing. They're pretty self-explanatory. The part I wanted the video is the actual bows. This is about the 3rd bow. There's flaps on the convertible top. They wrap around about a half turn counterclockwise, and they're glued. You can see by this first one here, they're glued with a really sticky, it's thin, but it's sticky, 2-sided tape. It looks like. They go around half a turn and then they're stuck. When the top is up and taut, that obviously doesn't do anything because it's nice and tight. I would imagine it just keeps it in place just when it folds into the back, so it doesn't get all wrinkled and crooked and everything. The problem is on the new top, there's no 2-sided tape, and I don't see any mention of it in the instructions. I'm going to read through again. When you get the tops, they usually give you some kind of basic instructions like these over here, but unless I missed it, I don't see anything about a two-sided tape. So I'm going to do a little research and maybe go out and pick something like that up for when I put it together. The good part is you can literally put it together, and if you had to do that after, I guess you could. In my case, since the zipper of the headliner is broken, I'm going to need a new headliner as well, which is, I guess, a good thing to do anyway. So I'm going to wind up having to put that in later anyway. But I just wanted to show you that. I'm going to pull this one off, move it a little forward, and then I'll most likely be able to retract the top back into the deck, lift the front of it up, and remove the screws there. From that point, there's not much holding it other than the cables. So unless I run into another issue, or run into an issue with retracting it back in, it looks like we're going smooth so far. At this point, I would say I probably only have a little over an hour, and I'm taking quite a bit of pictures, doing some video, running in, checking stuff online. All right. The only thing we really have now at this point is we have another strap and another strap over there. The third bow is like the first bow. It's got that plastic clip that clips onto the bow, 2 screws, 1 on each end. After these straps here are taken off, the headliner will pretty much be hanging right at the front header. So there's not much more to that. I don't know if I mentioned in the last video, but I was incorrect if I did, or the last part of the video. Once I peel this back, this part of the top pretty much isn't going to go much further because you have the cable. You have one of the cables here for the top. So what I'm going to do is after I get that undone, I'll probably fold the top back on top of it so it's nice and neat. And at that point, I'm going to retract the hardware back down into the car and pop the front of it up, and that should allow me to get to the cables and the rest of the stuff. Again, I think I've only really had, other than videotaping and running inside to look at the other top and other stuff, I may only be a little bit over an hour, maybe even a little less, actually turning a wrench. Most of it is just, you know, first time you do something, just takes you a while. So I've taken a bunch of pictures. And other than that, it hasn't been really too bad. It's not really too difficult so far, so it's a pretty easy job. Before I take off the front, I just wanted to show that there is one more, again, self-explanatory, so no need to go crazy with it. Right by the cable, this is what it looks like when the cable's detached. You have one little stretchy strap going down. It's like a double strap, and there is a screw there. It's a solid piece on the other side that looks like it's that's obviously the joint for the hinge. The screw doesn't affect it. The screw goes in a little bit further down, so that needs to come off there. And you've got another one up in there. Again, like I said, a little bit hard to see the straps for the headliner, but when you have it apart, it's pretty self-explanatory. So you know, don't be afraid to play around with it. What I've been doing is just taking pictures just so I know where everything goes, just in case. At this point, everything looks like it's disconnected that I did previously. What I did is I just buttoned up all of the any wiring, anything that was hanging down, so that the back framework is nice and clean. There's nothing hanging on it. There's no wires, and there's nothing else. So it's pretty much ready to go back down into the boot, I guess they call it. Anyway, since it's just me here, I'm not going to film it going down. If you own the convertible, nothing really interesting about that. So I'm just going to retract it down into the boot. What I am going to do before I do that, though, is if you look at the side where the top comes back, right by the one bow, you do have the cable that comes down, comes across from the windshield area right there. It's going to be a little hard to see if I point it up right in this area. Probably difficult to see. The cable comes across and there's a clip on it. Really not that hard. Pull the clip off, and that'll undo this cable. One on each side. I'm going to do that now just to give it a little extra, you know, just so it's free. and then I'm going to retract the top down, and then I'm going to take the front of the top off. Okay, this is pretty much the position that you really need it in. It doesn't look like it matters whether you do the back or like I did, or the front like it was suggested in the instructions. As long as some point you have it up in the air like that, that's enough to loosen up your cables so that they can come off. I already pulled the clips off. That's enough to loosen up your cables there, and that's enough to then get your screws out across your header. I think there's 11 of them. I also think it looks like there's 2 rivets over there as well, or a few rivets. So that's what I'm going to do now. If you go any further back with the top from straight up, it's going to want to just kind of automatically just shift down into the back. So straight up is probably about the best spot to do it. I was trying to get it back a little further. I thought it'd be easier than standing up in the car, but it really kind of squashes everything in the back, and that'll make it a little more difficult. Okay, now I'm standing up in the car. This is the top of the header. You've got a series of screws, about 11 of them, all across the top of the header. So all those need to come out. There's a little Velcro piece for the headliner. There's a screw hidden up there. From reading the instructions, I think there's also a rivet under here somewhere as well that needs to come out. There's also a strap for the headliner right in that area, and that actually has a metal rivet as well that needs to come out. So again, pretty self-explanatory. If you can't see it on the video, it's not a big deal. You just you'll drill it out when you see it. All right, at this point, all 11 screws are removed from the header. You have a piece of metal trim that's holding that goes right over top. Okay, so that comes off. It's bowed, so it only goes one way. And then essentially the top just flips over it. So you're just going to undo it from the end. Okay. And lift it over, flip it over. Okay, it's a little tight in the corners where the studs are, but it still does lift up. Okay, and there you go. It pops right over the top. Okay, and that's the front of it. Sorry again for the camera work. Okay, let me just show you the front. And that's a side view. You could see it there. So what it's doing is it's just flipping right over. Now there is, I think, under this molding, I'll have to stop the camera to take a look at it. Under this molding, I think there's either, it says a glue flap or another couple of screws, but again, it's pretty self-explanatory once you take the header off. Obviously there's a flap under here. That's the end of the cable, which will come off easy. And then right here you can see there's another flap. So that needs to be removed as well. From that point, the top pretty much looks like it'll come right off. All right, one thing I forgot to mention is this piece of molding here, right where the pin is on the side. Actually, we have a slight drip every once in a while, and I'm guessing this might be the culprit. But anyway, this needs to come off. And then that'll let you get the rest of the top off. I do see it in the instructions, I just didn't notice it before. I'm using a 5/16, but I'm sure they're probably metric, but the 5/16, I just grab one out of the toolbox. It takes them off fine. Anyway, if you pull the top back, there's 4 of those. Keep in mind that if you pull these screws off, or nuts off rather, these are actually shimmed, which is probably why I get a real slight drip every once in a while. Now I took the shims out. What happens is if you look at it from the side, there's the molding. If you look at it from the side, you pull the bolts off, you actually pull it back. There's also a screw on the very top, which you may or may not see in the video. Once you pull this back, it actually has shims on it. I took the shims and set them down from the bottom to the top. Now in my case, there were 3 shims on each stud. I guess that could differ. These all look the same. The thicknesses look the same on all of them. But I think that could actually differ depending on, I guess, how it seats. So since you've got the top straight up in the air, be really careful when you pull those bolts off, or when you pull the nuts off of the studs. Pull that back really carefully and make sure your shims don't fall all over the place. I only had one drop off, even though I looked at the instructions and it clearly shows that they're there. Totally forgot about it. So anyway, just wanted to make a note of that. That's really all you need to do, is to pull that back, and then you're able to get to the inside where the cable connects and everything else. All right, at this point our top's pretty close to coming off. I just wanted to show you these the weather stripping from the fronts of the car, close to the windshield and the header. These are the things with the shims on them. These shims, they're U-shaped, and that's actually the way they're installed. I did put the nuts back on so they don't go anywhere. In my case, I've got 3 shims on each one. Since they're shims, I would imagine that might differ from car to car. So you may only have 2, I guess. Who knows? These shims actually happen to all be the same thickness. So I don't know if they make different style of shims or different thicknesses, but these are all the same. The other point that I wanted to video is that the U-shape actually goes towards the back. There's a little ridge on them, and that appears to keep them from slipping backwards or spinning. So if you put them on the other way, I don't know. It's a small stud. I don't know that they would slide off if you put them on the wrong way. But in any event, that's the way they generally are. Of course, they'd be bolted to the car. As I thought, once you start peeling the top back, that tab, once you get those weather strip pieces off, those tabs are actually glued right in this area. And again, they have that really sticky 2-sided tape, really thin but really sticky. Other than that, you have your cable that is right through there, and that'll come out of the mount there. And other than that, our top is pretty much just hanging off of there now, other than the sticky attachment to that last bow. So I'm going to go ahead and take that off, and then I think I'm going to retract. Everything's ready to come off. All the glue, the tabs on the convertible top and wrapped around the bows are all ready to come off. That piece of aluminum there is a repair that I did, so yours obviously won't have that. It's hanging over the top, and all we're going to do is now just take it off and lift it off of the car. All right, one last thing. Headliner's ready to come off. These straps, they have a little tab on them. One says RH for right half, the other one's LH for left half. These actually, they have this little knob. It's real close to that other piece that I showed you before, right on this little piece of linkage. You've got the bow curving around here, and then right in the middle of it, you got this little bumper thing, plastic. That's a rivet on the back. I drilled it out just enough to get the stretchy cord off and the tab, but I didn't drill it all the way through yet because I want to make sure I remember where it was. This is, I did the same thing, drilled right through it. This will come off, and apparently you put a little screw and a nut, or a bolt and a nut through there after it's done, or I guess you can re-rivet it, which I might do. In any event, once that's loose, I'm pretty much just hanging here on the headliner. If I lift up on it, it exposes some screws under the actual headliner as well. So once these are off, The headliner will be off. The convertible top is off, laying in the grass over here. Then I'll fold the top down, get the tarp just in case we get a little bit of rain, and then I'm ready to put the new top on. What I'm going to do is pull the headliner off, get a new headliner, which I think I can do from the inside after the top is on. Alrighty, almost there. And there you have it. Headliner is off, and the convertible top canvas is off. As I mentioned before, the headliner is pretty self-explanatory, so if you're worried about missing a little strap or a little screw in the video, and you're thinking you may not want to take on the project, I wouldn't worry about that. I really wouldn't worry about it. There's really not much to do, and other than a couple of screws and a couple of rivets, it's not that bad. This cover, which I always thought was a little counterweight, so the top would come down better. It's just a cover for the motor, and that actually just hinges up. It comes off. That lets you get to this top ridge here. You can see where I've got a couple of the silver screws. Those are the ones that hold the headliner on. There's a bunch of those in there. I just put a few back to let me know where they go. Other than that, you've got the convertible top off and the headliner out. I'm going to clean up the bows, get the residue of the sticky tape off of there, vacuum it down, double check, make sure all the screws are tight. I should mention that a lot of these screws had some type of thread locker on them. Looked like most of it was like a bluish or a whitish, so it doesn't, they all came off with hand tools, obviously. So for a small screw or bolt that they have in these convertibles, some type of Loctite blue, just so they don't work themselves loose, is probably a good idea. Other than that, I'm going to vac it down and clean it up, make sure there's nothing damaged on it that I have to replace, and then start putting the top back on, which obviously is going to be exactly reverse of the disassembly. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I couldn't find anything on YouTube or online as a step-by-step, and there wasn't a whole lot of instructions out there for the Volvo C70. So that actually turned out good. I don't know how long the video is going to turn out to be after I piece it together, but it's now a little bit after 2:30 in the afternoon. I think I started around 10 o'clock even. So minus the time on the video, the time it took to go in the house, check online, double check the instructions, look at the old convertible top, and do a little bit of cleanup. I just cleaned out the boot area. Really, I think you can probably get the job done probably in 3 hours, maybe less, getting the top off. In any event, I hope that helped. I'm not going to go any further showing you how to put the top back on, because it's pretty much just reverse of taking it off. So I hope that's a help. All right, this is it with the convertible top frame up. Convertible top is off, headliner is off, and everything is cleaned up and ready to go. All the bows are cleaned up. I got all the hinges cleaned up. I might put a little bit of light lube on there just to make sure everything's fine. I'll re-grease the motor drives, the sprockets and things, and it's ready to get the top put back on. Back on. I think total, without taking video and taking pictures and eating lunch, I would say if you were really rolling, you could probably get it done in really 4 to 6 hours. I think you'd really have to be flying to do it in 4, unless you did it all the time. Anyway, the thing looks great, nice and tight, and like I said, installation is just the reverse of how you took it apart. A couple things I noticed is when you close the top for the first time, they are really, really drum tight. I'm actually letting it sit about an inch up. I'll probably let it sit overnight, just so it really gets a chance to stretch out just a little bit. The other thing is when you're putting things together, you might find that you need to raise the back or raise the front of the car, just to adjust it. So as long as you're not catching on anything and tearing things, you're in good shape. Like I said, to get at the bolts, to get at the nuts under here that go through, I had to raise and lower the top a couple of times to get it where I could reach it. Even right now, it's tight and it's nice. It probably might even be a hair tight. It's tight along here, and this in the front, really from the instructions, looks like that's the last you should do. I put those bolts in first, and it really did make it tight when I shut it for the first time. So I took the header bolts out here, loosened it up, closed it, just left a couple of them in there loose. Once everything got seated, I popped the top back open straight up and tightened everything down. So all in all, out of 1 to 10 for difficult, if you've worked on stuff before, I'd probably give it maybe a 5 or a 6. The first time you did it. If I was doing these every day, I'm sure these guys are probably knocking them out in 3 hours. But okay, hope that helped.